Welcome, my name's Tom Carr and this is the Property Web. This podcast is really here to introduce you to experts, people I know who can help you on your property journey. Today is a little bit different, but not totally. I'm here talking with a fellow Brit who is from opposite ends of the country to me, but don't hold that against him. A little bit of a north-south divide going on, but Scott Palmer is my guest today. He's a financial planner. He's come over from the UK, now based in Australia, and he's really he's here to sort of help with personal finance, is the way I see it. There's lots of different topics we could go down and rabbit holes, but I think it's really important for people to think more broadly about their finances, whether now or in the future. You know, we're all heading down one path. So, Scott, hello. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. No, welcome to this new world.
Yes.
So I think what the gist of what I want to do here is really step back a little bit, talk a little bit about you. Also, you know, what you do. How do you actually help people? People who are watching. What can they be thinking about now, long term? We're both from overseas, both from the UK, and so there's maybe a few people who sort of tune into that a little bit more, so we can touch on that. But why don't you start? Why are you here?
Okay,
Australia, maybe.
Yeah. So I'm dual national, so my mother's Australian, so I've always had that connection to Australia, and it felt like a special connection growing up as well. I've always had this kind of soft spot, I guess, for Australia. There's always that rivalry as well between, you know, in the sports and that kind of thing. But came over here 6-7 times before we actually made the move over the years. I've got family over here still, dotted around the place, and it just felt, I don't know, it's this strange feeling that I had in the back of my head that I always knew that I'd move out here one day for some reason. And then we came over 2 years ago, and at the time my eldest, she was about to start secondary school. It was a case of if we don't do it now, we never will. And we probably picked the right time to do it, because at the time it was -7 in the UK, and when we left, I think it rained for 6 months solid. So I laugh just because, you know, that's just the common theme for anyone from UK. It's like the weather, but I mean, you're from Yorkshire. Yes, North Yorkshire, yeah.
And so the grey, you're not missing the grey, the cold?
Do you know what? I'd be lying if I said I didn't miss home, because I really do. I miss it immensely. The rolling hills of the countryside and the greenery and everything like that. But yeah, the winters can be a bit harsh. And you know, you talk to a lot of Brits over here and they all say, I don't miss the weather. And the weather never bothered me, but then once I'm over here and you do get the blue skies constantly. Yeah. And initially I found myself wanting rain, because that's what I'm used to. I'm like, it's too warm. I'm sick of this blue sky all the time. Yeah. And then you get used to it. And it's the endorphins, isn't it? Go outside and it's nice weather and you think, yeah, this is
you get your shorts and t-shirt on and
I
never take them off.
Do you know what? I've brought with me all my clothes. I've got 4 or 5 pairs of jeans in the drawers that I've never worn since I've been here. I'm just shorts constantly.
Same.
Yeah.
So tell us a bit more about financial planning. Like, that's not everyone's choice, perhaps, when they're growing up.
Well, but that's very strange, actually.
Tell us about it.
It was So going through school in England, you go to see a careers advisor when you're about kind of 14, 15 to try and get a feel of the kind of things that you might want to do when you leave school. I never actually intended to go to university. I kind of just fell into going to university. But I was pretty good at maths, like business studies. I've really enjoyed maths, actually. I loved it. And some of the job titles that came out, one was financial advisor, which is what it was predominantly called back then. Financial planner is quite a newish kind of term that's developed in the last
Is that more of
few years.
Australian thing, maybe? Or
no, it's in the UK as well. And you know, you can't call a financial planner a financial advisor; they will take offence.
Right. Okay. Beware.
I might come into that a bit later. But and I researched what a financial advisor was, and I thought, yeah, I can't quite like the sound of that actually. So I went to university and studied financial services. I went back and did a master's degree in global finance. So I'm a bit of a geek when it comes to finance. I love it. I love spreadsheets and numbers and all that kind of stuff.
Great, that's why you're here.
Yeah. And then got my first job in financial advising 22 years ago and never looked back. I love it. I absolutely love what I do.
So it's not always obvious what it is to people from the outside. Like, how do you summarize it in a nutshell? What are you doing with clients? What is the reason for it? Like, what's the...
Yeah, okay. So this is the difference between a financial advisor and a financial planner, I guess. It's just terminology, really. But financial advisor would be building your wealth, paying less tax, and looking how to invest your money for you. A financial planner takes it a bit step further than that, and they're saying that's fine because everybody wants to build the wealth and pay less tax, but what are we doing that for? Where do we want to get to? What are the things that we want to do with our lives? Ultimately, it comes to retirement. You know, I've got to fund my lifestyle, but once I stop working, how am I going to fund that? And that's the basics of financial planning. But also, what kind of lifestyle do I want to lead along the way?
This is a bit more of a psychological element.
It's become massively, yeah. So it's really got into kind of like almost lifestyle planning and life coaching a little bit.
Okay.
But yeah, I love it.
And which part did you perhaps index on before or now? Like, are you on that sort of psychological element? Or sort of,
yeah, so it's evolved actually. So obviously when I started in the industry, financial planning wasn't as it is now. So it really was about, okay, you need to invest in this product, in these investments. And it was a bit product pushing, to be fair.
Yep.
But I started to really get into the nitty-gritty of, as I say, the financial planning and creating wonderful graphs for people to try and visualize how their life might look in terms of their money and finances. And it just really helps to people to kind of plan for the future, but also it creates a lot of accountability. So if you're just looking for a financial advisor and they're just investing the money for you, and your annual review, it's kind of, well, it's gone up by this much and it's gone up down by that much, and they talk to you about markets and stock markets, that can really turn people off. But if you've got a, if you give it meaning and you make it applicable to their life and what they can do with their life and what they can achieve, they buy into it a lot more. So we call it, where I work now, we call it the virtuous cycle. Is that the more that you put in, the more that you will get out.
And not just financially, it's a kind of the emotional side of that as well.
Hugely, yeah.
The research.
So, we're getting into the emotion of what does money mean to you, and it's almost of how they were taught about money from their parents, and that can be that's changing hugely.
In what way?
So the much older generation, I guess the baby boomers that were in retirement, so especially it's coming after the wars, they go into a mindset of you save everything. You every single penny that you can get, you save it. And then you don't really loosen the purse strings when you get into retirement because you're in that saving mindset that you can't really get out of. But clients these days, what we're trying to teach them is, well, actually, you can spend that money, especially when it comes to retirement. This is what you've saved it for. You need to start spending it. So there's a mindset shift that's gone on from people trying to almost going from hoarding it and not giving much until they pass away, when everybody's looking at what they've got thinking, oh, wow, I didn't know you had all of this stuff. There's more conversationals now with the next generation in terms of this is what I've got and this is what it means, and there's a lot of education pieces going on. Because one aspect of building wealth as well is that ultimately it is yours for you to use in retirement once you get to that stage. But if you're holding it back to pass on to the next generation once you pass away, why are you waiting for that moment? Why not let them enjoy it, the inheritance, at a time that they need it, and you can see them enjoy it? And
is that something that, I mean, it sounds kind of obvious perhaps to us, but
yeah,
I appreciate the mindset from my parents and grandparents' generation.
Yeah,
it's a message that people kind of resonates now a bit more, perhaps?
It does, yeah, because I think going back maybe a couple of generations, you didn't talk about money, really. It was a bit of a taboo subject, especially with your family, I guess. People were a lot more private, but we're starting to encourage those conversations now where, really talk to the next generation about what you've got and what it means, and really open up to them.
So moving a little bit more into that.
Yeah.
So you, on LinkedIn, you're a prolific LinkedIner.
Yeah.
Got some
last
great
2 weeks. Yeah. Too busy.
And, a lot of that is, I wouldn't say it's totally focused on pensions. That is something you do have quite a bit of expertise in, especially on the UK side. And we can perhaps touch on that and also some of the financial planning pieces. But on specifically pensions, because I think it's an interesting topic for a Brit.
Yeah.
Like myself, I've got a pension over there, don't really think about it that much. But what is the deal? Like, what is... do people move pensions over here? Is that a thing? Or what's the...
Yeah, so obviously when you're moving countries, such as we have, you've got a long list of things that you need to do. And when you've got kids that you're bringing over as well, there's certain things that you just kind of park to a side and forget about. And you think, I'll get round to it one day. You never quite do. So if you're moving to another country, take everything with you, so to speak. But there are there are specific rules when it comes to a UK pension of when you can do it and where it can go to. So for instance, with a UK pension, if you're going to be living in Australia and retiring in Australia, why would you keep it over there? I could hold up a list of the different types of superannuation in Australia, and I'd probably get to 5. If I did it for the UK with a pension, I'd get to 20 easy.
In terms of rules and regs and...
So many different, more complex rules and regulations, it's crazy. And they keep talking about pension simplification, but they never get around to it. So the pension that you've got might include certain benefits and guarantees and reasons not to transfer it to Australia. Mm-hmm. But there are obvious reasons to bring it to Australia, such as currency and there's a tax arbitrage as well, so there are advantages to doing it in that respect. But if you don't know what you're giving up to move over to here, you need somebody that really understands it and knows it and can really get into the nitty-gritty. But it's not just looking at it as a standalone piece, it's how does it fit into the wider financial planning piece, because you're building wealth and assets over in Australia. How's that going to fit into my overall financial plan?
And I'm guessing... having you come over to Australia more recently, most of your experience is in the UK, so you've built that up, whereas you do meet other people like myself who've been here 15, 20 or more years. Their thoughts of what the pension system was like when they left, probably a little different, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
So maybe talk a little bit more about the financial planning side, because I know that's perhaps where you're focused a bit more now, especially being in Australia. What's changed? What's different? What are you focused on?
So, people in marketing will always tell you to find a niche in business. And back home, as a financial planner, I would predominantly look for business owners because they're so busy building the business, generating revenue, that they're not really always taking care of their own personal wealth and what's going on there. And to be able to outsource that to a financial planner makes complete sense, because then you can focus on the things that you enjoy. You don't want to be sat at home in an evening thinking, am I invested in the right areas? Am I paying too much tax? It's kind of outsourcing that to somebody. And then coming over here, being a financial planner, the finance system in Australia is different. And it just felt a shame to put 20 years of experience and qualifications to waste and not be able to use it over here. And there's a market for it. And so I kind of fell into it, but I thought, well, this is perfect because I've got a target market that I can help. And coming over to start a new career and looking to build a new business, that has helped massively to gain traction. And it's also given me a bit of breathing space to understand the Australian financial market, because it is vastly different. And in the last 2 years, it's been a massive, steep learning curve, where I feel like I'm getting there now. Yeah. So I'm starting to help everyday Australians as well.
So in terms of what that help looks like, is there a particular type of client who approaches you, or you work with? Are they kind of coming up to retirement, or are they sort of earlier in their careers? What's the...
So being an expat financial planner, I've been shoeboxed and labelled almost like a one-trick pony. That is just a specialism that I've got that I see as an add-on to the other things that I can do. So when it comes to looking at ideal client, I guess for me, it's people around our age. So you've had children, the financial burden is starting to ease a little, although it never will completely go. Bank of mum and dad is always open.
Exactly.
And careers starting to really get going, and the earnings potential starting to increase a lot. If they're starting to run their own business, they can really put the time and money into that as well. And then it comes to a point where they maybe need that bit of help to think about, because let's be honest, when we get to our age, we start to think, 20 years ago, I was in my 20s. In another 20 years, I'm going to be in my 60s.
Yep.
So I need to start thinking about where I'm going to get to, because it's going to come before you know it. So it's those kind of that age bracket, 40s, 50s, pre-retirement.
And what are people thinking of? I mean, it's really important just to step back. Obviously, people don't do it all the time. But if you step back, because that's probably what you're doing a lot for people, what is it that they are concerned about, maybe, or maybe not thinking about, that you can kind of help guide them on?
Yeah, I think, it's the same over here as it was back home. A lot of people, as they get into their 40s and 50s, they just kind of plod along without any real focus and plan of where they're trying to get to and how to get there. And it's trying to give them we talk a lot about goals and objectives. So it's trying to almost visualize at that point, what point do I want to start easing off work, and these are the kind of questions that we start to ask, and what kind of income do I need to fund the lifestyle that I want? And people put that off for too long. And the amount of people that have come to me 5 years out for retirement and less, even had one person that came to me the day before they were about to retire and say, "Oh, this is what I've got, what can I do?" So, well, you should have come to see me 10, 15 years ago. I could have helped you a bit more.
Yeah.
Because a lot with investing as well is that you kind of put it into an investment and just leave it and don't really look at it and let it look after itself. But you need to be reviewing these things regularly, because markets change all the time, legislation changes all the time. And obviously that's where we come in. So it is kind of, making sure that people are just on the right path and regularly reviewing what they've got. And that's not something that they're always doing.
Yeah, I think it's very easy to assume that people are in the market, and when markets are roaring, the media is going on about it, and perhaps your own conversations with people make you feel like everyone's invested and they've sort of just got their life on track. But it's not really the case. You would see this all the time, where people like that story. I mean, for someone to go their whole life and just not have a real plan and sort of end up,
it's crazy.
It's kind of mind blowing, isn't it? But it must be quite motivating as well on the other side of it.
Yeah, I mean, if I can catch people early enough, we can really make a difference, and that's why I look for that kind of in their 40s, because they might start to be having these thoughts, and it's where we can really start to add value to what they've got. Because the earlier you start, the better. It's that compounding. The growth in the early years are so invaluable, because by the time you get to looking at slowing down, you haven't got that time frame to really make that growth. But it's also, when I'm talking about investment and what people are invested in, I mean, another story, there was a guy that came to me, and it was just after COVID, when Liz Truss was the Prime Minister of the UK, and she came up with a budget that completely decimated the government bond market, and they fell 40% within a couple of weeks. And this guy, and I've seen it over here, they have lifestyling strategies. So they're decreasing the risk of your investments as you get towards retirement and trying to protect the value. But that's fine. But as you go into retirement, you still need some growth to keep up with the income that you're taking. So he was in this lifestyling strategy, completely in government bonds, as he's needing into retirement. And he came and said last year it's worth £250,000, which is about $500,000. And now it's worth £150,000. And that's...
huge hit.
And it's almost like, I can't help you now. So you're going to have to maybe think about retiring later, and we can try and rectify this, or you're just going to have to accept that you've got less in retirement.
So that was a diversification problem, like
we
all
massive
eggs in one
advocates of diversification. Yeah.
Okay. So one of the things that probably we won't have heard as Brits coming over is this whole SMSF thing, and I'm sure you do hear about it. It seems to be on people's minds. Yeah. Like, I don't know if there's an equivalent in the UK.
There is. You've got sort of, yeah. So you've got a SIP, which is a self-invested personal pension, but probably more what we call a SAS, which is a self-administered pension.
Okay, so SMSF here, what is this in a nutshell? How would you best describe it?
I best describe it as giving you complete freedom and control about how you want to invest your retirement assets.
Okay.
Whereas if you're going with, retail super, your investment range is limited. You can't get into property for a start, and you're not the ultimate trustee of those assets that are in there. Mm-hmm. But the best equivalent in the UK is a SIP or a SAS, because they're the only vehicles that can allow investment into property. Although the biggest difference is that the UK doesn't allow investment into residential property. It's commercial only.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's a huge difference.
It is, yeah. But then when you transfer a UK pension to Australia, in their ultimate wisdom, HMRC decide that you can't invest in any property whatsoever with the UK pension money. So you've almost got to keep it separate. And I can't quite get my head around why they make that decision, where they allow commercial property in England, but if you transfer it to someone else, they don't. So it's a strange one.
So someone comes to you, they've maybe heard a little bit about SMSF, and it may not be the first thing that you touch on, but how would you, what are some of the next steps? Like, is there sort of minimum barriers to entry, or what are the key things that you're looking for?
Yeah, so starting to deal more and more with self-managed super funds for Brits as well as Australians. I've got a couple of clients I've just taken on recently. Mm-hmm. It's about economies of scale initially, because it's fixed fee with a self-managed super fund, so you almost need a certain amount of assets within that to make it worthwhile from a cost perspective. Otherwise, if you've only got $50,000 and it's going to cost you $3,500 a year, that's quite pricey. So that's the initial thing that you're looking at. There's the control and freedom to invest as you like. You can add members, so you can add spouse, children if need be. So there's almost like a continuation of intergenerational assets going on there. And the big one being property. So if people are looking for property, putting it in a self-managed super fund can make a lot of sense.
Okay. And obviously plenty of rules around that. And so that's probably where someone like yourself can help explain that away and just be clear what it can do and what it can't do. I mean, one of the big things for me is that, because I've heard this from other clients, they think that they can live in that property as well. Yeah. It's a complete no-no, but it doesn't take too long to kind of work out some of the ins and outs.
Yeah. So that's a big one. You can't just buy a property and then live in it. Everything's got to be at market value, and then there's in-house assets rules as well. There's lots of rules around what you can and can't do. But a good one for commercial property is if your business is in that unit, that's fed income. Yep. For want of a better Australian phrase.
You're learning.
Yeah. Business pays a rent to your super fund.
Yeah.
That's something that you could do in the UK, and it makes a lot of sense in a lot of ways.
Yeah, okay, awesome. Well, there's plenty that we could go into on this topic, but I think it's just important to seed some of these ideas, and I think, explain why people might even want to approach you and talk a bit more about this in detail. Mm-hmm. Like, so... maybe we can kind of sort of wrap up some of this, but I'd be interested to see, you're 2 years into Australia now, settling in, the family's in school.
Still not used to the summers. Wow.
I know you're doing a bit of running. This is kind of interesting. And but what is sort of on the horizon? Where do you see things going? What's the... Is there a Scott Palmer plan?
There is. There's always a Scott Palmer plan. It just gets adjusted all the time. So... we're settled. Central Coast is where we live. It's nice and quiet. As much as I love cities, I don't like living in cities. I'm a country bumpkin. But in terms of from a career-wise, you know, I've joined H&W Planning with Rob, who's the owner. He's run it for 20 years. He's an Aussie, so I'm learning a lot from him. But he's taken me on with the possible chance of me ultimately growing my own business, which has always been a dream of mine.
Yep.
I think it was going back to about 2018 when I just thought, I've got an idea of where I want to get to in life, and running my own business is central to all of that.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm aiming towards at the moment. But apart from that, it's, you know, from a personal side, it's getting fit. I'd like to do an Ironman at some point.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. But I'm not sure if in Australia is the right place to do it with the heat.
They're a little competitive over here.
Yeah, I know, yeah. So I did a triathlon at Lake Macquarie I quite enjoyed, but the heat got me on the run. But I've always had an Ironman as my plan. I did a 100k run in the Blue Mountains 6 months ago, which I'm going to do again in another 6 months.
Wow.
But I want to build up to doing a 100-mile run, then maybe 200 miles.
Jeez. Oh,
But it's just where do you stop? I know, yeah. And then you think, well, I might as well just climb Everest and swim across the English Channel and that kind of stuff. It's where do you stop? But I don't know where to stop with it all.
Well, it's good to have an ambition.
It is.
Good to have a plan. I might even do some of them with you. But thanks for coming along. Really appreciate being here.
Thanks, Tom.
And we'll put some notes in around how people can contact you in this episode. And thank you to everyone for joining us on this episode. And we'll see you next time.